The family farm, a tradition in Canada going back 200 years. Today's farmers face the same challenges as their forefathers. Weather, soil fertility, pests, commodity prices. But today's family farm is a vast and complex enterprise, employing cutting-edge technology. From breakthroughs in genetics, communications, and chemistry, we grow our food more quickly with less energy, less environmental impact, and in greater abundance than ever before. But farmers face a new challenge. Consumers and activist groups have called into question, has technology made our food different? Is our food safe?
I would never intentionally buy a GMO. I avoid them at all costs. If I bought one, it's by accident. I think there are just too many things going on in the world today with bees and butterflies and birds and crop failures, things that just aren't natural, and I think we need to do things as naturally as we possibly can if we're going to let the world survive.
Public concerns have arisen that genetically modified foods are substantially different than the varieties we have always had in our food supply and are unsafe for human or animal consumption. People are also concerned that genetically modified seeds create genetic pollution in the environment and will have unforeseen effects on the ecosphere.
Everything we eat is genetically modified from its wild ancestors, but if this was done a few thousand years ago, people are less concerned than if it was done in a lab yesterday.
Humans started working and developing agriculture about 10,000 years ago. People have hybridized plants to make new crops, and they were eventually able to recognize that you could make crosses of different strains within the same species. More recently, of course, is the genetic engineering process. You can identify a unique gene, you can reconstruct that gene, and you can introduce it into a host plant.
All we are doing is the next level of plant breeding. We're giving it a very specific trait by moving something across. It's very precise. You're taking out of an entire library a single couple of sentences and moving it into an organism.
No one has a clue about risk, right? Our intuitions do not equip us for an objective understanding of what really matters in terms of risk. People avoid GMOs because they think they're carcinogenic, despite there's no evidence for that. And everyone's busily, pouring alcohol down their throats, which is a proven carcinogen.
One general fear that people have is that somehow these products are not safe, that they haven't been adequately tested. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. These plants have undergone very thorough, confined field testing to make sure that there are no safety issues, no environmental issues with them whatsoever. There is a series of steps that the regulators impose on researchers before you can come to a product that's commercialized. This takes years, though there's very, very sophisticated and detailed testing. There is no concern about safety of these plants. There have been literally thousands of research publications supporting the fact that these products are indeed very safe.
Thus far, the main use of GM technology has been to create seeds that are resistant to specific brands of herbicides. Activists allege that global megacorporations are using this technology just to sell more chemicals and are creating seed monopolies, encouraging monoculture, and are contributing to the evolution of superweeds that are pesticide resistant.
In the case of glyphosate resistance, what the researchers found back in 1975, that there was a particular kind of soil bacterium which was resistant to glyphosate, and they managed to take the gene from that bacterium that rendered it resistant and implanted it into the genome of canola.
And using the canola example for herbicide tolerance, if you take the seeds of that plant and extract the oil and bottle it for vegetable oil, you cannot tell the difference from that oil in that bottle from one that has been produced from organic canola or conventional canola. So there's been no engineering of the oil, which is another misunderstanding.
In the UK there's no GMOs and we've already got 50 herbicide-resistant superweeds, so-called. Except no one calls them superweeds because they don't exist with GMOs. But the point is, you will never beat evolution. And using any kind of crop protection, whether it's the pesticide or the pest-resistant crop, puts a selective pressure in the environment for those pests to evolve resistance. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't use the technology in a sensible way to try and forestall resistance for as long as possible. It's like saying we shouldn't use antibiotics because of antibiotic resistance. So therefore everyone needs to go back to dying of pneumonia and other preventable diseases. Now that's dumb, but it's just as dumb to say that in agriculture.
In spite of the concerns about genetically modified foods, why are farmers so confident that GM technology is not only safe, but that consumers and environmentalists should be actively supporting GM technology?
Golden rice is an excellent example of a GM crop that has direct human health benefits. Of course, rice is generally consumed as a white rice, and it's consumed that way in many parts of the world, including the tropics. Many of these people are very short of vitamin A, and this results in very serious health problems such as night blindness. It really is the cause of terrible diseases and many deaths. And golden rice has been developed through GM technology, and it's been demonstrated that you could consume that rice and you could receive enough vitamin A. Unfortunately, that rice has not been released commercially, even though it has been developed about 12 years ago for commercial release, simply because of the fear-mongering and the activist concerns. It's really a tragedy.
But everything else remaining equal, if you can get a seed which gives you a better harvest in a dry year, then you've got to be better off. And that's the situation for a lot of farmers in sub-Saharan Africa.
This is what we have with genetic modification. The potential is there, it's tremendous. We have the possibility of crops that require less water. We have the possibility of taking specific genes from broccoli, let's say, health-promoting substances, and putting into potatoes. I mean, all of these things are possible, but we're at the forefront of this technology. So it would be crazy to cut it off.
Insect-resistant crops, which have been bred using biotechnology, and BT is a great example, allow farmers to reduce their use of insecticide. Now that's a good thing for sustainable agriculture because you have less chemical pollution on the land. I don't see any reason why using modern genetics in crop breeding should be rejected. It's illogical, and in fact ultimately it's counterproductive for the environmental objectives that we all share.
All we can say is that based on the scientific knowledge that we have today, the benefits greatly outweigh the risks. And added to that is the fact that we have a lot of scientific knowledge. We're not just guessing.
So there's no credible evidence at all that anybody has ever been harmed by consuming genetically modified foods.
With every sort of added regulation or policy that gets put into place based on consumer concerns as opposed to scientific concerns, it's not necessarily going to always be the farmer's choice of how they operate.
If farmers don't stand up and speak out and become their own advocates and tell their own stories, this trend of other people telling their stories for them is going to continue, and it's going to grow exponentially.
If farmers don't take the opportunity to speak up about the decisions that we want to make, my fear is that we will lose that privilege.
Generations of farmers have struggled and prospered here, but the landscape has changed, and their biggest challenge yet still remains: standing up to dispel the myths about modern agriculture. Will Canadian farmers make themselves heard before it's too late? Or will they stay silent and lose their license to farm?